A region on edge. The India-Pakistan conflict. The Indian subcontinent is no stranger to conflict. The recent escalation between India and Pakistan has sent shockwaves across the world. These nuclear-armed neighbors share a tumultuous history, marred by territorial disputes and political mistrust. The Kashmir region, a point of contention since the partition of British India in 1947, remains a flashpoint. Despite attempts at diplomacy, the issues remain unresolved, creating a powder keg. The latest crisis erupted on May 10, 2025, shattering the uneasy peace. A border clash quickly spiraled into a full-blown military confrontation. The world watches, hoping for a swift de-escalation. The spectre of a wider conflict looms large. This report aims to provide a factual account of the events, drawing on credible sources. First shots fired. A timeline of the initial skirmish. On May 10, 2025, Indian artillery units opened fire on Pakistani positions along the line of control. India claimed it was a preemptive strike against imminent attacks by Pakistani-backed militants. The barrage targeted militant launch pads, causing heavy casualties. Pakistan denied involvement, calling the attack unprovoked.
Pakistan confirmed Indian artillery struck military posts and civilian areas. Pakistani troops responded, inflicting losses on the enemy. Both sides deployed reinforcements, raising fears of wider conflict. India mobilized its elite strike corps. Pakistan deployed armored units, air defense, and fighter jets.
Retaliation and response. Pakistan's counteroffensive. Following the initial Indian artillery barrage, Pakistan responded swiftly and decisively, leveraging its military capabilities to counter the Indian offensive. The Pakistan Army deployed its rapid response units, which are specially trained and equipped for quick deployment and engagement in high-intensity combat scenarios. These units, backed by a sophisticated network of drones and ground intelligence, launched precision strikes on Indian positions along the line of control. The Pakistani military claimed to have effectively targeted Indian artillery guns, ammunition dumps, and command and control centers.
Pakistan's military spokesperson, Major General Baba Iftikhar, addressed the nation, stating that Pakistan's response was a measured and calculated reaction to Indian aggression. He emphasized that Pakistan's armed forces were fully prepared to defend the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity. General Iftikhar reiterated Pakistan's commitment to peace and stability in the region, but warned that any further aggression from India would be met with a befitting response. He also accused India of spreading disinformation and propaganda to mislead the international community.
The fog of war, propaganda, and information warfare. As the situation on the ground escalated, so too did the information war between India and Pakistan. Both countries engaged in a relentless propaganda campaign, disseminating conflicting narratives and accusing each other of atrocities. Social media platforms became battlegrounds for information warfare, with both sides deploying armies of bots and trolls to amplify their message and discredit their adversary. India accused Pakistan of orchestrating the recent massacre of tourists in Indian-controlled Kashmir, which New Delhi claimed was the trigger for the current hostilities. Pakistan vehemently denied any involvement in the massacre, calling it a false flag operation staged by India to justify its aggression. Meanwhile, Pakistan accused India of using the conflict to divert attention from its internal problems, such as the ongoing farmers' protests and the government's crackdown on dissent. Islamabad also accused India of committing human rights violations in Indian-administered Kashmir, alleging that Indian security forces were using excessive force against unarmed civilians. Section 5. International repercussions, global reactions and diplomatic efforts.
The international community reacted with alarm to the escalating conflict, urging restraint and dialogue.
The United Nations called for an immediate ceasefire and a return to negotiations.
The United States urged de-escalation and offered to mediate.
Secretary Blinken spoke with counterparts, offering mediation.
China called for restraint but supported Pakistan's self-defense.
Russia urged restraint and a peaceful resolution.
The European Union called for a ceasefire and dialogue.
The EU urged respect for humanitarian law and civilian protection.
Section 6. Cities under siege. The human cost of the conflict. The conflict between India and Pakistan has had a devastating impact on civilians on both sides of the border. Cross-border shelling and airstrikes have resulted in numerous casualties, with hospitals and morgues struggling to cope with the influx of wounded. Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced from their homes, seeking refuge in makeshift camps or with relatives in safer areas.
In Indian-controlled Kashmir, the situation is particularly dire, with communication lines cut off and essential supplies running low. Hospitals in Srinagar, the region's largest city, are overwhelmed with casualties, and there are reports of shortages of medicines and medical personnel. In Pakistan, cities along the border with India have been hit by Indian artillery fire, causing widespread damage to infrastructure and civilian homes. Schools and businesses have been forced to close, and residents are living in a state of fear and uncertainty. Section 7. Economic fallout. The global impact on trade and finance. The conflict between India and Pakistan has sent shockwaves through the global economy, disrupting trade, rattling financial markets, and raising concerns about the impact on energy prices. India and Pakistan are both major economies, and the escalation of tensions has raised fears of a wider regional conflict that could have catastrophic consequences for the global economy. The Indian stock market has plunged in recent days, with investors spooked by the prospect of a prolonged conflict. The Indian rupee has also weakened against the US dollar, reflecting concerns about the impact on the Indian economy. Pakistan's economy, which was already struggling before the conflict, has also been hit hard, with the Pakistani rupee plummeting to record lows against the US dollar. The conflict has also disrupted global trade, with shipping companies diverting vessels away from the conflict zone. India and Pakistan are both major exporters of textiles, agricultural products, and pharmaceuticals, and the disruption to trade is likely to have a significant impact on global supply chains. Section 8. Ceasefire and its aftermath. A fragile peace. After days of intense fighting and mounting international pressure, India and Pakistan agreed to a ceasefire, effective midnight on May 15, 2025. The ceasefire agreement, brokered by the United States, called for both sides to halt all military operations along the line of control and to refrain from any actions that could escalate tensions. The ceasefire brought a much-needed respite to the beleaguered populations on both sides of the border. However, the agreement remains fragile, with both sides accusing each other of violating the ceasefire in the hours and days after it came into effect. In the aftermath of the ceasefire, both India and Pakistan have begun to assess the damage caused by the conflict. The human cost of the fighting has been significant, with hundreds of soldiers and civilians killed and thousands more injured. The economic cost is also likely to be substantial, with both countries facing a long and difficult rebuilding process. Section 9. Scars of War, Seeds of Hope. The Long Road to Reconciliation. The recent conflict between India and Pakistan has left deep scars on both sides. The fighting may have stopped, but the underlying issues that led to the conflict remain unresolved. The path to lasting peace in the region will be long and arduous, requiring both sides to make difficult compromises and to address the root causes of the conflict. Despite the challenges, there are also flickers of hope. The ceasefire agreement, though fragile, is a positive step. The international community, alarmed by the prospect of a wider conflict, has been united in its calls for restraint and dialogue. The people of India and Pakistan, weary of conflict, are also yearning for peace. Civil society organizations on both sides are working to build bridges of understanding and to promote dialogue. The road to reconciliation will be long and difficult, but the alternative, another devastating conflict, is simply unthinkable.